Alright, thank you for joining me today. I've come out of my hidey hole and I'm now outside. And then we have the magical levitating canvas, which is just perfectly hung here. But today, because it's so gorgeous outside, I decided I'd paint some happy little clouds. And I did some research, and there's like 200 kinds of clouds, and there's actually something called the Cloud Atlas that you can go and read about hundreds of different kinds of clouds. And for this segment, I wanted to just talk about 4, because it's a little easier than 200. But yeah, so let's get at it. So the first kind of cloud I want to talk about is the highest one. It's called the Stratus Cloud, which makes sense because of the stratosphere. But these are just kind of like very wispy. It's coming. Oh yes, I brought out the big crayons today. I figured we would need that for clouds. If you're doing this instead with oil paint, just use big old glob of white paint and go on with it. But yeah, so these are just kind of the highest. Basically, it's like fog, but upstairs. So you have something that just looks pretty wispy, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press a little bit harder, so you're gonna get actual highlights on the top of these clouds, so you get some variation rather than just, pure fog. And the other thing is these clouds are usually a bit gray, so instead of just adding, I have a couple different gray large crayons. Let's see how precarious that is. So depending on the painting you're doing, you might want to use something that's more green toned or more brown toned. I think what I'm going to use is the green one in this instance, just because I think I want it to come off as more cool. And those decisions are kind of up to you. It's based on what you're painting. But I'm just going to come in here and add, just in a little bit of the background, some greener tones. Some happy little sad clouds of fog. Just gonna add some depth and interest. I think that's pretty good. It's also useful to know that when you see paintings of clouds or just landscape paintings in general, if you have kind of a knowledge of the higher the cloud, the wispier it might be, or if you have really low setting clouds, that sets a very different mood. So it's good to see some kind of variation. Not all clouds have to be the the curlicue guys. Although that is next. So low clouds are the cumulus clouds, and these are the ones that we all learn how to draw in school. So they're going to be rounded and then a little flatter on the bottom. So you want it to look kind of like a VW bug or a croissant. It doesn't really look like either of those, but you get the idea. They tend to settle, and the reason they're flat on the bottom is just because the way the atmosphere whips them up on top, they still kind of settle a little bit. So you have, a typical cloud shape. You can exaggerate some of the features, and what I'm doing with all these clouds is I'm just scratching in a little bit, so you can still see a lot of the black background coming in. But then on patches where I want it to be really bright, so if I say, okay, I want this part to come out more, so this hump is in the background, but let's say I want something right up front here to add 3-dimensionality, this curvature is just going to add to that. And then obviously we'll put some highlight on the top, because that's where the sun is going to come out at the most. And then we're going to go back in with a little bit of that gray later on the bottom. And then I'll add another one just in the background, just to stir things up. More exaggerated curves here. And again, just going in and scratching. The great thing about clouds and grass and trees are that there is no one cloud or tree. No one's gonna say, oh, that doesn't look right. Like, if I try to do a painting of my friend and, you know, their eyes aren't in the right place or their nose is slightly big, they're gonna say, oh, that's not me, but no one can point to this and be like, oh, that's not the cloud you were trying to paint. Because no one knows the clouds I'm trying to paint. And I think that's really liberating, and that's why I tend to do a lot of nature-y type drawings, because it takes the pressure off. Yeah, so just get in there. And then you're gonna wanna come back in with the gray. I'll do the warm gray, just to show a little bit of difference. But you really want these bottoms to, you'll see. See, that adds a lot of depth to your painting. And then this cloud over here, same thing. Because there's no light coming through from the top, the bottoms are gonna seem a lot darker. And just adding this one feature in, and maybe some gray behind some of the shapes, just fill it in a little bit, adds three-dimensionality, really does make a difference and make it pop. So these are kind of cool. These are cool clouds. They're always like really low in the horizon. On top of that, they usually appear like early in the day on hot days, and then they're gone by nighttime, which I think is pretty cool. I feel like a lot of people don't know many things about the different kinds of clouds. I really didn't. I feel like I learned that once in like 3rd grade, and then it vanished from my mind. But now that I know how to draw a couple different kinds, it's like really cool. And it can add variety to just like different paintings that I do. So the next kind is going to be the cirrus cloud, and these are the really like wispy patterny ones that you see that are almost like hair or like cotton candy, that are just like medium height in the sky, somewhere in between. And I'm going to come in with one of the smaller crayons from yesterday, or oil pastels from yesterday, and just I'm going to wipe off the tip here just because it's kind of messy, just the tip. And so to make these, to differentiate these from this is like one fog bank that's coming in. These are like, you know, wispy. You just gotta go for it. You know, and you can connect some of them, but usually in the sky they're like pretty free floating, I've found. So it translates well if you just kind of leave them alone, just like that wispiness, and then come in with a little bit of highlight. I think in a future video I'll probably do one about like sunset and the different colors you can use, just coming in and adding in the pink and the white and the yellow to really make things pop. Okay. See, as I said, this is a YouTube video without editing. Honestly, I think it looks better that way. So we're just gonna leave it. But yeah, okay, so we've got 3 cloud-like things down. I am satisfied. So the last thing is called the cumulonimbus, which you've probably heard of, and it's the thunder cloud. And these things are friggin' huge. They're like literally towers in the sky, and they're also the ones that produce hail and then ultimately become tornadoes. So they're like the big daddies of cloudland. So we're gonna come back in with the white crayon, and they can honestly extend like all the way up here. So we're just gonna, and they look a lot like this at the bottom. So we're just honestly just gonna make some shapes. Honestly, haven't seen a good thunderstorm in a while. We've had a couple in Los Angeles when I was little, but I really miss them. I love living in Berkeley. I think it's one of the best places to be an artist, especially a young artist. And the weather is really good, but it's either slightly too cold or like, yeah, no thunderclouds. Not too much going on. It's always foggy, but I shouldn't be complaining. Anyways, okay, so we have some like vague cloud-like giant shape here. And this does not look like clouds. This looks like a boot. It's like very confusing and ugly, and you're probably like, what on earth is she doing? She's ruined her painting. But no. So the thing is, like, first you gotta come in, and I'm gonna differentiate a few different shapes. So this down here, I want to look a lot like these other clouds. So you have, you know, typical shapes here, the white accent. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight kind of some of the cloud shapes coming in here, and then also over here. Just anywhere you see an edge that needs something interesting going on. That's kind of the move. Alright, so make it more cloud-like. You can have like more cloud-like shapes up here that also help differentiate it. So like that, and also just like here. This edge is kind of difficult. You get the idea. You're getting some kind of like cloudy monstrosity. This is the sort of cloud you would see in the background of a lot of like biblical or otherwise like classical paintings. Or if you ever see like angels, like the background is always just like all clouds. And so this is kind of where that's from. So I'm actually going to go in. I didn't blend any of the other ones. I thought the texture was actually pretty useful. But the blending, you'll see, really brings out a lot of the cloudiness of the work. Just gonna come up. I think this is a pretty happy thundercloud. It's not too angry. Let's see. Let's come up here. And a lot of art is just patience and playing around. It's honestly a lot of experimentation. And half the time you're not going to know how it's going to look when you're starting out, unless you have like a really precise plan. But, you know, some of the best art doesn't involve that. And that's okay too. Especially with things like clouds. Like, I mean, I could be stressing over every edge and every shape, but I don't think it would get me anywhere, you know? Alright. Just do a few more blends, and I think we have the general gist of this column. Cool. So now that we have some of that going on, it's kind of interesting. It looks like it's dripping a little bit. You're going to want to add in the dark colors. So you just got to pick places like below the cloud formations that you've done and just add in the gray. So in this is actually like way too light of a shade of gray. So I'm going to come in here with some black and really add in some dimension. It's okay to just like make weird shapes too. Just play around. Like honestly, like you never know whether something is gonna look right or not just from thinking about it. Like you really have to go out and do it and just see what happens. Alright. Kind of my default with most things is like if there's a lower part of the cloud or the image, just like add in a shadow there. Just kind of make it look angry. Definitely down here, like these are thunderclouds. They are large. These are not happy little clouds. These are strong giants. Yeah. Now that that's done, we can go. You know, that's actually pretty good. But I'm gonna blend just a little bit, just to like give this sense of the softness. That's the other cool thing about oil pastel, is that you can really get a variety of textures based on how much you blend. You can cross-hatch, you can really do anything with oil pastel, which I really like. But the same could be said of oil paints or watercolor, it's really entirely up to you how you want to use the media to your best advantage and your own ideas. So, alright. Just a couple more strokes. Alright. Cool. And yeah, so there you go. You got a variety of different clouds. I can blend this one in a little bit more down here. He's looking kind of angry. Yeah. Maybe this one too. Oh. Very messy. I'm gonna show some detail shots of the work. Let's try to see like different colors. It's okay. I guess the better idea would have been to bring the painting closer. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So you see there's like a pretty big difference between the blended ones and the not so blended ones. But you know, it makes for good variety. Yeah. So these are just a couple different techniques for different paintings. Usually, if you're gonna do a large landscape, it's good to plan out like what do you want the sky to look like. Because if you have like, for example, like a really dark landscape, like you don't want the clouds to be too light because then you're just gonna lose your view going up into the sky. So it's good to think about these things in advance and plan out like, okay, like what kind of clouds would I find up here? And Google is the artist's best tool after the iPhone. And honestly, just like looking up like, you know, a very nice like sky and just scanning. Sometimes it takes me like 30 or 40 like images on the internet to like pick out, oh, like this is exactly like the position of the skeleton that I'm gonna draw, and sometimes you have to make it up on your own. Like, as I said, sometimes the clouds are in your head, and it's good to say, you know, you can't tell me this is wrong because it's a cloud. But yeah, so that's my daily life lesson on painting and confidence in meteorology. It would be really amazing if you could like and follow and subscribe. It's a very new channel. This is like work in progress, just like everything else. But I really like all the positive feedback I've been getting from you guys too. And if you have any comments or any ideas on things you've been struggling to learn how to draw in the past, comment them down below and I'll try to see if I can make it happen. Thank you so much and see what happens next.